everyone, I'm Flora Pros, and I'm back with another anatomy video. In this one, we're going to be moving down from the head onto the neck. We're going to be looking at 3 bones that have effects on drawing the neck, and then 2 major muscles. So, number 1 of the bones, obviously, the spine. The spine has 4 parts: the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacrum. Each part of the spine switches off, bending inward and then outward, forming an S shape. Cervical bends inward, back out for the thoracic, in again for lumbar, and then back out for the sacrum. Part of the spine that makes up the neck is the cervical part, so let's take a better look at it. If you look at the bottom of the skull, you'll see this giant hole. This is called the foramen magnum, I think that's what it's pronounced. And this is what the spine connects to in order to allow the spinal cord to connect to the brainstem. It's approximately in the middle of the cranium, so we can see that placement better at the side view. The spine doesn't connect like this, or this. Granted, I don't think I've ever seen anyone connect it here. But the first one I have seen. Mostly this issue happens when people teach about the line of action, drawing one line to represent the spine and or like the whole gesture of the body. When I was really new to drawing, and I heard about the line of action, I tended to draw the spine like this. Yes, this is actually my art from several years ago. You can see I had no idea how the spine curves, and I was using pretty much just one straight line, connecting it to the back of the skull instead of the base. Getting back to the proper placement, it sits close to the middle of the skull. There's some bone hanging off the back and the face mask hanging off on the front. Now, because of the curve of the neck, its capacity to bend forward is much greater than its ability to bend backwards. These spiky parts on the back of the spine restrict the tilting back movement. Next up is the thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage, and the hyoid bone. In the middle of the throat, there's this protrusion that's often called the Adam's apple. The technical name for it is the thyroid cartilage. It's meant to protect the vocal cords and other weak part of the larynx. Shape-wise, it reminds me a little bit of a gravy boat, more so in the front. In profile, the top of it seems to kind of be like a backward question mark. The most important thing to notice is its effect on the outside, this sharp triangular bump. On men, the cartilage tends to be sharp and much more noticeable, and women's tend to be less angular, blending a bit more seamlessly into the neck. This is, of course, something that varies from person to person. Right under the thyroid cartilage is a ring that wraps all the way around the trachea, called the cricoid cartilage. This forms another smaller, rounder bump right under the Adam's apple. But the most important bone I want to mention is the hyoid bone. This is in charge of handling swallowing, speaking, and keeping your windpipe open as you breathe and sleep, especially as you sleep. It's located right up above the thyroid cartilage, right at the connection point of the chin to the neck. If you place your finger along your chin until you hit your neck and then swallow, you can feel it. I tried this and had such a strong, full-body revulsion. I don't know why. I just went like, I would not be a good doctor. Hey, so I have this bulge on the back of my hand and it's kind of squishy, so hey. Number 3, the jaw. One of the most common issues artists have with connecting the head to the neck is drawing underneath the jaw. To fix that, we're going to look at the jaw and the hyoid bone. They work together to form a wedge shape that I'll get a little bit into more detail with in a bit. You can see this better from underneath, but the jaw has a blocky U shape with thickness. A lot of the time you can visualize it as a line instead of an actual 3D form, so keep that in mind. But right underneath the jaw, there's this space, so it needs to be covered with muscles and skin. That pad of muscles goes straight to the hyoid bone. I did some tracing over my head to show this wedge shape as you lean back in space. At the front view, you can't really see it much at all, and the moment you start to lean back, that wedge starts appearing. Also, you're not going to see crisp lines outlining the jaw all the way as you lean up. The jaw isn't sharp like a box. The edge of the bone, along with the roundness of the skin over that, makes the edge of the jaw firm. If you have a line here, it ends up looking like a line of occlusion shadow. But if you see the tilted head back from a side view, you can see the skin just slide smoothly off the jaw into the neck. Cynics talks about lines on the jaw in his neck video. I'd recommend checking that out as well. So keep that wedge in mind, but don't actively outline it with lines. You mostly want to just indicate it's there with values. Also, the neck has flesh and volume too, so as you're leaning back, you'll see the sides start to squash outwards. This is because of the principle of squash and stretch. If you have a specific volume, as it bends, that volume will have to move elsewhere. In this case, it's the side of the neck. This is my head tilted all the way back. Low-key, it looks like my neck is broken, but we're going to go past that. In all these pictures, I drew the outline of the jaw edge in dotted lines, because again, you still need to keep in mind that those forms are there, but you don't want to have solid lines. Another thing to notice here is the facial features. As the head starts tilting back, the features come closer together due to foreshortening. The distance between the nose and the eyes get closer and closer until they touch the same eye line. Then the tip of the nose eventually touches the top of the forehead and the lips touch the eye line. So that's another anatomy tip to keep in mind. Alright, so we learned the jaw and the hyoid bone work together to make this wedge shape. Keep in mind that it is fleshy, so it changes shape depending on the jaw type. If you have a weaker jaw, this just means smaller, so the chin tilts back a bit more, and that wedge sags a bit more naturally because it doesn't have more jaw to stretch it out. So if you pull your chin back, you'll get that double chin. I have a bit of a weaker jaw, so I have a rounder face. I don't got that Chad jawline, sorry to disappoint. I also have like a weaker jaw just in general, like this is what it sounds like. Also, I can't yap for too long or chew something tough for too long because then I run the risk of almost dislocating my jaw. Yeah, that's happened a few times. So if you have more fat on your face and your body, i.e. chubbier, it'll tend to look rounder compared to the, sharpness of the skull. So you'll tend to see slight indications of like the start of the jaw near the ears and then maybe a bit underline under the chin. You can see what I mean with this picture I drew here. If the bone is the block and you have the skin tight against it, you're going to have a sharper angle. If you have a bit of fat in there or there's just less angular bone, then the edge will be rounder and a little less noticeable. Alright, now that we've finished covering bones and cartilage of the neck, we're going to cover the two most important group of muscles I think about when drawing the neck, the sternocleidomastoid and the traps. Biggest out of the two is the traps, a huge diamond-shaped muscle located primarily on your back. It actually has a couple of connection points on your neck. Connecting to the top of your shoulder blades, it goes up to the back of the head, specifically this nub called the external occipital protuberance. Looking at the front, it then wraps around towards the front of the neck and collarbone, connecting specifically to your acromion process and this strip on your collarbone. You can see it forms this triangle shape. Now don't go making necks look like this. As I said earlier, it doesn't completely cover the neck, only majorly the back and a bit of the front. So when you're drawing the neck, it'll be some straight and then it'll slide down into an angle into the shoulders. Alright, the next muscle, which is located on the front only, the sternocleidomastoid. This is a muscle group that allows you to tilt your head to the sides and lean it forward. Its connection point is the mastoid process bone right behind your ear. It's superficial, which means you can actually feel it. Going from there, it swoops down to the pit of the neck. In terms of shape, it's thicker at the top before tapering towards the neck. Michael Hampton describes this shape as looking like a baseball bat, and it also reminds me of a force shape as well. If you've seen Mike Montesi, you know what I'm talking about. Keep in mind squash and stretch. Also, it splits at the pit of the neck, connecting to the collarbone right next to the pit, making an upside-down Y shape and tiny triangles right here. The sternocleidomastoid becomes noticeable when you tilt your head to either side, but most noticeable when you turn your head to the side and tilt it back slightly. Combining all this together, let's draw a couple necks and try to apply what we learned, and draw maybe a couple different angles and turns. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this and learned something from it. I'm a little unsure of what to do next. I know I'm working my way down for my anatomy series, so maybe I'll do a poll on my Instagram for if you want me to do deltoids or pecs next. I'll try a poll on my YouTube as well. The back muscles will probably be one of the later videos because I haven't studied them recently, so I don't have them fresh. See you in the next video, and in the meantime, have a good day.